This is the story of a world where different races live together. 100 years have passed since the big war between them ended. Everyone promised peace after that, but for Kale, peace has been a far-off dream. He's just a regular student, no powers, and every day is a battle. One day at school, things get really bad. Some bullies burn his back, and he's left crawling on the floor in pain. They laugh, make fun of him for not unlocking any abilities yet, and tell him he should just quit. Just when things look even worse, a teacher steps in and the bullies back off. Kale takes the chance and runs, hiding behind a tree for a bit before heading home like nothing happened. At home, his little sister Mui, who's actually a sword master, greets him. She grabs his bag but notices his gym clothes are all messed up. When she sees the burn marks, she questions him. Kale makes up a story about a school drill and fighting monsters. Mui isn't buying it. She points out that the kind of creatures in the forest wouldn't leave burns like that. Her face turns serious as she figures someone did this on purpose. Without hesitation, she pulls out her sword and asks who did it. Kale tries to stop her while she's clearly fuming and ready to take revenge. She reminds her that a sword saint shouldn't talk like that. She eventually calms down and tells him to stop pushing himself so hard. Kale feels embarrassed and looks away. His powers still haven't shown up. Then he asks why she's home instead of at the guild. She casually mentions it's her day off. When he tells her he's thinking about quitting school and getting a job, she immediately shuts that down. She's earning enough for both of them and tells him how important school is. He tries throwing her own logic back at her, but she shrugs it off, saying she's technically still in school while also making money. She goes off to make dinner, telling him to sit tight. Left alone, Kale sits with his thoughts. He's tired of getting bullied and leaning on his sister for everything. He heads out for a walk, hoping fresh air might help, even though he knows it probably won't change anything. That's when he spots something weird. A girl, clearly a vampire under the moonlight, looking like she's struggling. Curious and worried, he walks up to her to help. But before he knows it, she's biting his neck. Then she apologizes, saying he got dragged into her mess. She tells him she's turned him into her temporary kin and that he'll be fine by tomorrow. Kale starts freaking out, confused and panicked, but she's calm, saying it's only for a bit and everything will go back to normal. A moment later, he notices his eyes glowing red. She cheers, saying the transformation worked. Kale's still in shock, but Krina seems sure of herself. With him on her side now, the demon they're facing doesn't stand a chance. The fight gets real when the enemy charges at them like he's got nothing to lose, completely brushing off Krina's warning. She quickly yells at Kale to move, and just as the demon's fist is about to hit, Kale suddenly zooms into the air with speed he didn't even know he had. He's shocked, not expecting that kind of reaction from his body. The demon throws in a sarcastic comment, saying Kale's just as good at running as his vampire boss. Krina tries a surprise attack, but the demon dodges it. She snaps at Kale to stop standing there and help. He's still trying to process the fact that she made him her thrall without even asking. She explains that the demon kills anyone who sees him, so now they're both stuck in this mess together. Suddenly, the demon lands a brutal kick, slamming Krina into a wall. He casually reveals that his mission was to kidnap Krina and take out anyone who saw too much. The way he stares them down makes it clear he's not bluffing. Kale quietly freaks out, saying he's not trying to die tonight. Krina shoots back that she's not planning on getting kidnapped either and says they need to work together. She pushes him to use blood manipulation, a vampire ability. Kale hesitates, unsure how any of that even works. Krina says it should come naturally like how humans unlock their powers, but Kale admits he's never been able to do that. The air goes dead silent. Krina looks stunned, especially since he's clearly past the age where powers normally kick in. The demon starts laughing, clearly enjoying how messed up the situation is. He rushes in again and strikes Krina hard. She crashes again, and the demon mocks her for ending up with a useless lackey who can't even defend himself. That hits a nerve in Kale. He takes a breath, starts focusing hard, and thinks back to how he managed to dodge that first attack. As he gathers himself, dark energy begins to swirl around him. His eyes narrow. He's not running this time. Kale suddenly feels the vampire power coursing through his body, surprising even himself. Krina, still struggling to hold back the demon, sees it too and shouts for him to hurry. The demon grins and charges in again. Kale raises his hand, and just in time, a glowing dark shield pops up between Krina and the enemy, blocking the attack. Everyone freezes. Kale actually did it. A flicker of light reflects in his eyes as he starts realizing what this new strength means. Then, without really thinking, he swings his arm and sends a massive slash of dark energy flying. It slams into the demon, knocking him into the wall and knocking him out cold. Krina just stares, stunned. Kale, on the other hand, looks down at his hands, completely thrown off by how his body feels like everything's moving to a rhythm he never noticed before. For a second, it's like he was born with this. But before he can figure out what's happening to him, Krina reminds him that it's not over. She tells him to finish the job, kill the demon. She says she can't do it herself right now. Kale pauses, not ready to take that step, not until he knows what really led to all this. Krina's voice turns cold as she acknowledges Kale's defiance. She quietly apologizes for forcing her powers on him, but follows it up by demanding loyalty, telling him to follow her orders as his master. Kale doesn't flinch. She tells him again to take out the demon, but he doesn't budge. Krina stares, stunned, unsure why her command didn't work. She tries again, putting more force behind her words, but Kale gives the same response, no. Starting to panic, she throws different commands at him, hoping one will stick. Kale, clearly annoyed now, asks if he can leave. Krina grabs his arm and says no. She assumes he must have been under someone's control before, but Kale says this is his first time getting tied to a magical creature. That throws her off even more. Krina insists the power he used earlier isn't something a newbie could pull off. It takes vampires years to learn that. Kale just shrugs and says maybe she's not as strong as she thinks. That hits a nerve. She fires back, reminding him she's a pureblood, a big deal among vampires. Still, something's not adding up for her. She's never met someone who could resist orders like he just did. Kale gets bored of the back and forth and says goodbye. He jumps away with his new powers, leaving Krina standing there in disbelief. As he disappears into the distance, she catches a glimpse of his school uniform. Her eyes narrow. He's from Yahello Academy. She smirks, knowing they'll run into each other again. Next morning, Kale checks himself carefully. Whatever magic she used on him, gone. He's relieved. If he was truly made a thrall, things should have felt different, more out of his control. But he was calm the whole time, which doesn't line up. At home, Nui cheerfully greets him, waving a first aid kit in his face, thinking there's another survival drill at school. She also mentions she's heading back to work at the guild, and Kale's reminded how hard her life is. She's all smiles though, saying supporting him gives her purpose. Kale feels guilty and offers to find work, but Nui shuts that down. Then she chuckles to herself and mutters something under her breath. Kale hears it and calls her out. As he watches her being her usual cheerful self, something shifts inside him. He quietly wonders what'll happen if he keeps depending on her. The thought scares him. He wants to stand on his own. Later, in the busy capital city, Kale walks through the academy halls. People glance at him as he passes, but he's more focused on the weather. It's way too hot. His friends Rios and Eddie show up. In class, Rios asks how the training went and if his bullies caused more trouble. Kale admits he got beat up again. Eddie suggests fighting back, but Kale says he can't, even if he wanted to. Eddie gets concerned and tells him to maybe skip training today, but Kale's determined. He doesn't want to waste the money spent on his tuition. Rios asks if he's sure and offers to help out, but Kale insists he doesn't want to involve anyone else. It's his problem to deal with. Rios shrugs and says he'll respect that he won't interfere. Just as they're chatting, Eddie suddenly calls out that class is about to start. The drill's kicking off soon. Kale finds himself standing awkwardly in the middle of the field as everyone gets into position. Then he hears them, his bullies. Their voices cut through the noise, calling his name like they're just picking up where they left off. Kale tenses up, already on edge. Before he can do anything, something explodes right in front of him. His instincts kick in, and suddenly it's survival mode. One of the classmates starts using him as a moving target like this is all just a game. Kale bolts. No time to argue or fight back, he runs straight into the forest. One of the bullies watches him go and mutters that Kale might actually die if they don't do something, but no one moves. Kale's shoes are barely holding together as he runs deeper into the woods, soaked in sweat and on high alert. He just wants to get far enough to hide, maybe find a way back without bumping into anything dangerous. That's when he sees a massive lion standing over a girl. She's just calmly facing it down. Kale yells out a warning, but the girl Ina doesn't flinch. She's totally calm. Then she jumps over the lion like it's nothing and slams it down with one heavy hit. Kale can't believe what he just saw. She walks away from the lion like it's no big deal, then glances at him. She asks if he has a death wish, wandering into this part of the forest alone. Kale tries to explain himself, pointing out that she's alone too. Ina flicks her tail and says she's got it handled. He realizes he's been staring and apologizes. They exchange names, and she says she's from the tiger tribe. When she finds out he's Mui's brother, her expression shifts. She mentions how people think he's just some dropout with no future. Then she sniffs the air and pauses. Kale gets visibly uncomfortable as she leans in. She guesses right away he smells like a vampire's thrall. Not just any vampire, but a pureblood. That really catches her attention. She's surprised that someone like him managed to attract something so rare. Ina then tells him she wants to test him and asks if he'd be willing to join her team. She's not joking, she wants him to take down wild beasts with her, as her minion. Out of nowhere, wild chimpanzees appear in front of them. Kale's kind of flustered and explains that he only became a vampire's thrall by accident. He figures she'll back off, but nope, she doesn't buy it. Ina says a thrall's strength depends on their master, and based on the scent, she knows he's got potential. She pricks her own finger and says she's going to turn him into something even stronger. According to her, the secret to making a beastman kin is forming a blood bond through repeated, focused wounds. Without waiting for approval, she pricks Kale's finger and presses it against hers. A blood pact is made. Kale immediately feels a new kind of energy rushing through him. Then a tail appears behind him. Just like that, he's now part beastman. He blinks in disbelief twice in 2 days. He's been turned into someone's thrall. Ina doesn't give him time to process it. She tells him it's time to hunt and turns her focus to the approaching chimpanzees. Kale's eyes narrow. The beasts charge in and the real fight begins. Kale makes a split-second decision and darts up a tree, leaving the wild chimpanzees stunned and confused. Ina watches wide-eyed, surprised by his swift movement. Meanwhile, Kale is still trying to wrap his head around the overwhelming strength. He's feeling comparing it to what he experienced when the vampire power surged through him. As he crouches on the branch, he draws his claws, his body buzzing with newfound energy. With a swift leap, he dives back down, slicing through the beast with grace and power. Just then, Ina shouts a warning. One of the chimpanzees is right above him. Kale doesn't even glance up. A weapon flies toward him, but he catches it like it's nothing. He vanishes in a blur and reappears behind the chimp, grabbing it by the neck. As he tightens his grip, he even apologizes, not really meaning harm. Suddenly, Ina snatches the chimp away and out of nowhere flashes in and attacks him. Kale quickly blocks her strike, confused. He glares at her and demands to know what she's doing. Ina doesn't answer right away. She steps back with a smirk, then admits she's impressed. Kale gives her a cautious look, not quite sure what game she's playing. Ina tells him bluntly there's no reason he should be this strong just because he's her kin. Kale pauses, realizing the same. Something weird is happening. This strength, it's beyond what should be possible. She asks if he's ever been bonded with a beastkin before. When he says no, she goes quiet for a moment, clearly thinking. Then she casually says she'll catch up with him later and vanishes into the trees, leaving Kale scratching his head. Later, back in class, things get a little too normal. The teacher announces a new transfer student is joining. Kale's friends think the timing is kind of strange, and the teacher says the student was supposed to join last spring but had delays. Everyone is told to give them a warm welcome. Kale nearly chokes when the new student steps in. It's Krina, the same pure-blooded vampire who made him her thrall not long ago. She enters the room smiling sweetly, totally unbothered, and introduces herself with elegance. Kale, on the other hand, is sweating bullets. Eddie leans over and whispers, asking if Kale knows her. It's clear Eddie can tell something's up. Meanwhile, Rios is already falling head over heels for the new transfer. Kale just tries to act cool, praying nothing wild happens today. That is, until the teacher calls his name. Krina walks over, grinning like she's enjoying every second of this. Her expression falls slightly when Kale speaks to her coldly, asking her what she wants. She looks a little surprised at his tone. Before she can answer, Kale's bullies swoop in, all smiles, offering to show her around campus. Krina keeps her polite act up, smiling sweetly, then says, "No thanks, I want Kale to guide me," with a killer smile that makes Kale's bullies fume. Now alone with Kale, Krina drops the formalities. She cuts straight to the point. Is it true that he still can't use his abilities? He finds out that her classmates had filled her in on his background. They advised her to stay away from him since he's kind of an outsider. Kale, feeling embarrassed, covers his face with his hand. Then he asks her directly what her real reason for joining the academy is. She repeats her request to show her around, which leaves him a bit confused. She explains that what the teacher said earlier was true. She always planned to enroll, but things were delayed for personal reasons. When he asks if her request has anything to do with their earlier meeting, she says it's part of the reason, but insists that their encounter was purely by chance. Krina pleads with him to show her around, saying she's been looking forward to this for a long time, and Kale, understanding her enthusiasm, agrees. They head up to the rooftop, and as they look around, she comments on how lively the campus is, just as she imagined after seeing the library, the school store, and the training grounds. Now that they have some privacy, Krina starts explaining things. She reminds him that her entrance was delayed, and it wasn't because of family issues, but more because of personal circumstances. She brings up the demon man who attacked them before and reveals that he was part of the Algard Empire, a military-focused nation known for its hostility towards non-humans and non-combatants. She describes it as a country full of soldiers who handle tasks that society usually avoids. Krina explains that the Empire is hunting demi-humans for their blood and asks Kale if he knows about special armaments. He recalls hearing rumors about weapons that use racial traits, but thought it was just a myth. She assures him it's real. and that the Empire is secretly developing these weapons while hunting down demi-humans and royal blood like hers. Krina then reveals she's from a branch family and belongs to the B lineage, while the main family is part of the T lineage. But the Empire doesn't care about family ties as long as the bloodline is pure. This shocks Kale as she explains that she is the type of material the Empire is after. She continues, explaining how the attacks delayed her entrance to the academy. She was supposed to attend the April ceremony, but constant attacks kept messing up her plans. She didn't expect the Imperial soldiers to chase her even after she crossed into the kingdom. Kale, curious, asks where she's from, and she tells him she's from the vampire territory right next to the Empire. Part of her reason for entering the kingdom was to escape the Imperial soldiers, but part of it was her own choice. She reflects on her life as a princess in the Branch family with royal blood, but admits that living that life didn't suit her at all. Krina reveals that her main desire is to live freely, without the constraints of lineage or race, which is why she came to the kingdom. Kale, seeing this, compares her to a princess longing for the world beyond. But Krina, offended, insists she's not cut out for that life. Kale mentions that he's heard royal demigods are supposed to be powerful, with purebloods having even stronger traits. Krina agrees, acknowledging that it makes her formidable, but Kale points out that she seemed lost during their encounter. She argues that she was actually much stronger than what he witnessed that night. Suddenly, Krina asks him how he managed to wield vampire powers so smoothly if it was his first time being a thrall. Kale, confused, says he has no idea. She explains that blood dance is an advanced technique that even vampires have trouble mastering, so she's curious how he used it so effortlessly. Kale again says he doesn't know how it happened. Krina doesn't believe him and starts to suspect that he might have been a vampire's minion in the past, even going so far as to question if he's actually human, which Kale denies. Frustrated by his lack of answers, Krina wonders aloud how he could have done it. Kale apologizes for not having any answers, but starts to wonder if there's some skill like thrall suitability that might explain it, suspecting he might score high in it. Krina, not having heard of such a thing, says it's probably just his guess. Her attention is piqued when Kale mentions that it wasn't just limited to vampires. He tells her that he once became a thrall to a beastman and his skills were over the top too, which shocks Krina. She confronts him, asking if he joined the beast folk, but he reassures her it was only for a brief period. She grows thoughtful, making Kale nervous. Then, in a quiet whisper, Krina thinks that she should have marked her territory on him. Out of nowhere, she asks him if he would consider being her protector. She explains that the Empire is after her, and she needs reliable allies, which leads her to turn to him. Kale wonders if she can't handle it herself, but Krina admits she came to the kingdom alone without any guards. She explains that escaping was the only way to get away, and she has no one else to rely on but him. Kale asks why she's choosing him, and she immediately answers that it's because he's incredibly strong. He starts to doubt himself, calling himself a misfit and a late bloomer. He tells her she shouldn't rely on him for something so important, but Krina refuses to accept that. She recalls how they bonded, remembering how strong he was during their fight, and insists that only he can protect her. Though Kale tells himself he has no intention of getting involved in something so dangerous, he feels guilty about leaving Krina alone. His thoughts drift to his sister Mui, but Krina interrupts, offering him 5 gold coins a day as a reward. Kale finds the amount too generous for a student and doubts she's serious, but she confidently tells him that it's nothing for her and that her mother will handle it. He considers the offer, wondering if this could mean no longer depending on his sister financially. Kale eventually agrees to be Krina's protector, which makes her happy. She tells him that his role is to guard her until the Empire's pursuit of her is over, though she adds that it might be better to aim for the time when she's no longer a target. She mentions that the Empire will eventually grow tired of sending assassins if they keep resisting, and Kale understands. He then wonders what happened to the demon who attacked them recently. Krina suddenly gets annoyed and blames Kale, saying the demon got away because of him. Kale insists that he doesn't believe in killing, which Krina understands, given that he has a life to protect. He wishes she'd been more open about their terms before making him her familiar, which makes her feel guilty. She feels bad, while Kale, though still serious, feels somewhat lifted, as though something inside him has changed. Meeting Krina feels like a refreshing shift for him, a welcome change from his stagnant life. A week passes and Krina greets Kale as they begin their partnership. The two are a bit awkward at first, but she gives him a warm smile and tells him it's time to hit the road. In the midst of the busy street, they walk together. Kale recalls that it's been a week since he became her bodyguard. Every morning he picks her up at the inn and they head to the academy together, ensuring her safety. So far, there haven't been any attacks, but Krina reminds him to stay vigilant, as the attacks could come out of nowhere. She grins silently and Kale notices. Krina says she never thought he would protect her so seriously, which makes her happy. Kale replies that he's only doing what he's paid for. When they reach the academy, they're surrounded by students, almost like Krina is a celebrity. Eddie points out how much of a sensation she's become, and Kale agrees. Kale looks for Rios, and Eddie gestures toward the corner, where a group of male students are kneeling in salute. It turns out that the students have formed a fan club, calling themselves Krina's personal knights. Eddie notices that Kale isn't fazed by the attention and asks if they're dating, since he saw them walking to school together. Kale explains that they simply left their houses at the same time, but Eddie remains suspicious. He jokes that Kale might be getting jealous, but doesn't think Krina will care. Eddie decides to stop prying though, and reminds Kale to be careful next time. Kale acknowledges the advice. Later, in the library, Kale informs Krina that they were spotted together earlier. She starts to feel nervous and asks who saw them. He tells her it was Eddie, and Krina realizes that Kale hasn't spoken much to him before. Kale looks thoughtful. Krina then asks why Eddie is wearing a men's uniform, to which Kale replies simply that he's a guy. Krina finds that hard to believe and comments that Eddie is cute, but Kale warns her not to tell Eddie that, as it will irritate him. He then asks what they're researching in the library. Krina reveals she's reading about human abilities. She explains that she needs to learn more about humans since most of the kingdom's population is human. She opens a book and asks Kale about the 7 types of human abilities. Kale tells her that they include talent, dominion, imitation, enhancement, contract, absorption, and awakening. Krina finds the range of human abilities fascinating, noting that they seem far more complex than vampire abilities. Kale explains that humans are often described as a species rich in diversity. Krina figures out that the talent type refers to abilities that develop easily, and she asks about Kale's sister, the Sword Princess. He confirms it and explains that her talent allows her to master sword techniques effortlessly, which Krina finds incredible. Kale agrees, adding that innate talents, especially powerful ones, take time to fully bloom, something that's not a problem for his sister. Krina is then curious about the control type, which can manipulate elements like fire or water. Kale confirms this and adds that other forces, such as sound and stone, also fall under this category. He mentions that the vampire trait of blood manipulation would fit into the human category of dominion. Krina is impressed and asks if enhancement types can boost other talents. Kale explains that enhancement types can't boost other abilities, but instead focus on strengthening themselves, often targeting things related to physical strength. Krina wonders if learning capacity falls under an aptitude type, and Kale confirms that it does. He elaborates on the diversity of human abilities, pointing out that while many abilities can seem similar, they function differently. Krina mentions that she struggles to tell the difference between talented and awakened types. Kale clarifies that the talented type learns their abilities through hard work, while the awakened type doesn't need to put in effort to activate their powers. She wonders if the awakened are just a superior version of the talented, and Kale agrees, but adds that awakened individuals don't always benefit from their abilities in the same way. He explains that talented types must work hard, but with persistence they can eventually reach the same level as the awakened. Krina summarizes that the awakened have an advantage in the short term, while the talented shine in the long term. She finds the concept more complicated than she initially thought, but understands the importance of mastering the different types. She then wonders what kind of power Kale has, but he admits that he doesn't know either. Krina asks if he could tap into his human abilities when he became her kin, but Kale explains that he tried many times, though it didn't work because he hasn't unlocked his human potential yet. He reflects that the sense of invincibility he felt when he became her thrall didn't carry over to humans. Just then, teacher Elena approaches them in the library and praises their dedication to studying. She asks Krina if she's getting used to the academy, and Krina responds that she's still adjusting, but is enjoying herself so far. Elena is happy to hear that Krina is having fun and mentions how Kale used to frequent the library, noting how intense he seemed back then, though now he's more relaxed. Elena tells them that if they ever need someone to talk to, they can reach out to her. She leaves the library, and Krina asks what Elena meant by his intense aura. Kale reflects that Elena must have known he was struggling to unlock his potential and describes her as a great teacher. Krina then asks if Kale really became a beastfolk's thrall, and he confirms it. She speculates that Kale might be favored by non-human races, but he doubts they understand that he hasn't awakened his abilities yet. Krina, thoughtful, agrees with him, but points out that creating a bond with a thrall isn't something done lightly, which is why she thinks he's special to her. She adds that he was the first human she made her kin. Krina opens up, revealing that a strange voice inside her had told her Kale was the one she should turn into a thrall. There was a certainty she couldn't deny that he was the person she should choose, and despite the dire situation, she would never have made a stranger her kin. She reassures him that she doesn't plan on creating more kin for now, though this doesn't exactly comfort Kale. Krina also points out that thralls tend to become possessive of their masters, but Kale doesn't feel that way at all. When she reassures him that she would only be his master, Kale feels bashful. She offers him the chance to become her official thrall, which would put her mind at ease, but Kale quickly turns it down, fearing that it would make him permanently tied to her as a thrall. He admits that he only wishes he had the strength people expect of him. Just then, they're interrupted when someone calls Kale's name. It's Lawrence, one of his bullies, and he approaches with a scowl on his face. Lawrence accuses Kale of getting too arrogant lately, which confuses him. He demands that Kale stay away from Krina, insisting that a failure like him shouldn't represent the academy. Kale realizes that Lawrence wants to get closer to Krina, while Lawrence warns Krina to stay away from Kale. Lawrence offers to show Krina around the academy instead, but she politely declines, saying she's satisfied with Kale escorting her. This sets Lawrence off, and he snaps at her, claiming that Kale is deceiving her, and that associating with a failure like him will ruin her reputation. Krina remains unfazed and responds that she doesn't care what others think. Fuming with rage, Lawrence challenges Kale to a duel, suggesting they settle things once and for all. He invites Krina to watch the mock battle the next day during the first period to show her just how inferior Kale is. Kale initially plans to find a way to avoid the challenge, still doubting his abilities. But to his surprise, Krina steps in and accepts the challenge for him. She wishes him good luck, adding a surprising twist by whispering to him that she wants to test the power of kinship. Kale, now understanding her plan, formally accepts Lawrence's challenge. Krina expresses confidence in him, reminding him of the time he defeated the demon soldier. Kale then reveals that Lawrence is a noble, which shocks Krina, as humans from higher social classes tend to have stronger abilities, much like demi-humans due to their somewhat hereditary traits. Krina feels a bit guilty for pushing him into the duel, but Kale reassures her that it's fine, even if she could have picked a better time to test his abilities. Krina explains that her motivation wasn't just about boosting his confidence. She felt insulted by Lawrence's behavior toward Kale and wanted to defend him. She admits that she considers Kale her hero, which surprises him. Kale responds modestly, saying he was just trying to survive when he fought the demon soldier, but Krina points out that he acted on his own accord to help her before she even gave him orders. She believes Kale helped her of his own free will, and she expresses her gratitude, finally telling him how thankful she is for saving her. This leaves Kale speechless, not knowing how to respond. Kale, feeling bashful yet resolute, is determined to give everything he's got in the duel with Lawrence, making Krina proud. The next morning, Krina prepares him for the battle and offers to boost his strength by giving him some of her blood. Surprised, Kale reacts instinctively and smacks her away, telling her not to drink from him. Krina, desperate for just a little taste, begs him, but Kale firmly forbids it. She throws a tantrum, calling him a beast for denying her, causing a scene. Finally, Kale relents, but only allows a small taste, hoping to get used to the feeling. Krina is overjoyed, moving closer to his neck. Kale winces as she bites him, and he feels a strange sensation as she explains that she infused a generous amount of blood to help him. Krina then reveals that he now has fangs and wings, which surprises Kale. She reassures him that he doesn't need to show them unless necessary. At the training ground, Krina cheers for Kale as he steps onto the battlefield to face Lawrence. Lawrence, seething with anger, warns Kale not to get too cocky. A shadow envelops Kale, and sharp blades emerge from the darkness, aimed at him. Kale's keen vision helps him dodge the blades, but he gets a small cut on his shoulder when he misses one. Lawrence then traps Kale with his shadows. However, Kale surprises everyone by breaking free, and the shadows vanish, leaving Lawrence pensive. Kale realizes that his vampire abilities might be the reason for his unexpected move. Lawrence accuses him of dodging the attack by sheer luck and conjures an obsidian sword, declaring that his next strike will be the final blow. He insults Kale, calling him a failure and boasting about the difference in their power. Despite the injury, Kale remains determined and feels an overwhelming sense of invincibility. Lawrence is taken aback as Kale unleashes his vampiric energy, swinging his arm to form a massive axe. Krina is stunned, and so is Lawrence, as the battle intensifies. With a powerful swing, Kale delivers a devastating blow, knocking Lawrence unconscious. The crowd watches in astonishment as the smoke clears, revealing Kale standing victorious. Kale, however, is contemplative, acknowledging that being someone's kin doesn't automatically make him invincible, though the power he feels is undeniable. As Lawrence is carried off on a stretcher, Krina comments that she was right about Kale's strength. Kale, still doubtful, insists that he only borrowed her power, but Krina counters that borrowing her power alone wasn't enough to make him as strong as he is now. She notes that other demi-humans are also impressed by him, and she truly believes that Kale showed his own strength in the battle. Kale tries to dismiss her praise, but it's clear that Krina's confidence in him is unwavering. Meanwhile, Lawrence, still seething, throws a tantrum at the clinic, insisting that the match was unfair because Kale used his familiar's power. The next day, after Kale's victory in the duel, Elena confronts Lawrence for using his abilities against someone without any of his own. Meanwhile, Krina encourages Kale to celebrate his win, but Kale dismisses the idea, saying there's still the looming threat of the Imperial army to worry about. The two pause for a moment, watching the kids play outside. Krina admires the peacefulness of the kingdom, which Kale finds strange given the recent duel. She explains that she was referring to the harmony between humans and demi-humans in the country, something Kale has trouble grasping since his experience is limited to human society. Krina then unfurls her wings, explaining that her uniform is designed to meet her physiological needs. She mentions that society is making efforts to bridge the gap between demi-humans and humans. She compares this to her vampire domain, where other races were often looked down upon, though she acknowledges that humans and vampires have very different lifestyles. Feeling slightly down, Krina worries that her words brought the mood down, but Kale reassures her that he finds her perspective fascinating. He offers to take her home if she's not feeling well, but she insists that she's fine. As they reach the inn, Kale questions how Krina is managing her daily expenses. She admits that she's struggling financially, and Kale points out the risk of staying at an inn while the Imperial army is still a threat. He proposes that she stay at his place instead, offering her a safe haven. Back home, Mui excitedly greets Kale, happily mentioning that she heard about his victory in the duel. Kale is surprised to see her since she was supposed to be working. Mui brushes off his question and asks if it's true that Kale defeated Lawrence, the eldest son of the Eldegard barony, with a single blow. She's ecstatic and wants to celebrate. Kale then tells her that he has a friend staying for the night, and she sees no issue with that. However, when Krina enters, Mui immediately becomes pensive and asks her identity in a territorial tone, calling her disrespectful for barging in despite Kale's permission. Mui then expresses regret for having taken on a long-term request and reveals that she will be leaving for a business trip the next day. She confronts Krina, accusing her of seducing her brother, which Kale tries to defuse by explaining the situation and telling Mui that Krina is harmless. Mui remains adamant, refusing to allow Krina to stay. Kale pleads, telling his sister that the situation is complicated and revealing that Krina is of vampire royalty. Mui, unmoved by his charm, insists that she won't allow another girl to stay in their house. Kale begs for just one day, and Mui finally agrees, but with conditions. She demands that Kale change the bathwater after using it, no contact after 10 p.m., and that Krina stay in Mui's room. She also offers Krina her own clothes, forbidding her to wear Kale's. Mui then prepares breakfast, insisting that Krina won't be using their kitchen. Both Kale and Krina are left feeling awkward by Mui's territorial behavior and her clear discomfort with their guest. The tension between Krina and Mui is palpable, but Kale tries his best to keep the peace, while Krina is left in a somewhat bewildered state by Mui's strong-willed personality. As the day goes on, Mui prepares to leave for her business trip, and before departing, she takes out her sharp sword to threaten Krina, warning her to follow the conditions or face the consequences. Once Mui is gone, Krina comments on how angry Mui was with her, and Kale apologizes for his sister's overly attached and territorial behavior. Krina, in a more relaxed mood, suddenly asks Kale where they should stay starting the next day. Kale suggests his place, but Krina reminds him that she can only stay for one more day. Kale dismisses his sister's demands, noting that it was only a verbal promise, and the two fall into a comfortable silence as they sit at the table. Krina, breaking the quiet, asks about Kale's parents. He tells her they are missing, which Krina finds serious. He adds that it's been years since they disappeared, but he and his sister aren't troubled by it anymore. Krina then notices a sword on the wall and asks if it belongs to Mui. Kale reveals that it belonged to their mother, a renowned swordswoman from another country. He explains that their parents met while adventuring and eventually settled in their current country. Krina, optimistic, suggests that maybe his parents are off on another adventure, but Kale agrees with her, recalling the fun times they had before they disappeared. He fondly remembers how they took him and Mui on trips to nature, temples, and ruins. The memories make Krina emotional, and she decides that it would be best for her to stay elsewhere starting the next day. She doesn't want to taint their family memories and still wants to keep her promise to Mui. Kale, however, reminds her that the inn is dangerous, leaving her with no real options. He wonders if Mui is at the guild, hoping to renegotiate with her, but then comes up with a new idea. He suggests Krina stay at the guild's accommodation, which has top-notch security. Krina is curious as she's never been to a guild before and asks if it's open to everyone. Kale, equally unsure, believes it can't be that complicated. They agree to check it out the next day after school. As Kale prepares the bath for her, Krina mentions that a simple shower will do. Kale finds it a bit odd that she won't use the hot spring, especially as a guest, but reminds her to change the water afterward. Krina, puzzled, asks why his sister would set such a strange condition. She jokes that Kale might be up to something mischievous while taking a bath, but Kale irritatedly responds that he normally takes a bath first, and she doesn't need to worry about it. He understands why his sister might be suspicious, considering he brought a girl home in the late hours. The two suddenly fall into an awkward silence, both blushing. Krina, feeling the tension, quickly leaves to take a bath, while Kale directs her to Miui's clothes. Alone at last, Kale reflects on how he can't keep his cool like Miui does. He quietly sips his tea as time passes. Then, Krina returns, calling for him. When Kale asks what's wrong, she blushes deeply and asks if she can borrow his clothes. Kale, not minding at all, agrees. Krina, embarrassed, tells him that Miui's clothes are too tight for her, which shocks Kale. He's taken aback but tries to keep the situation light, still flustered by the earlier awkwardness. Krina struggles to cover herself with Kale's clothes, venting that Miui's conditions are totally unacceptable. Kale agrees with her, feeling just as awkward about the situation. Deciding to lend her his clothes, he asks Krina to wait for him. His discomfort grows as the moment unfolds. When Kale returns, he hands her his clothes, acting like nothing unusual happened. Krina apologizes for causing a fuss, but Kale brushes it off as he quickly finishes his bath. Afterward, Kale asks Krina what she's been up to. Curious about how she's been spending her time, she shows him her planner, explaining that she's been busy organizing school events. Kale notices that she genuinely enjoys her time at the academy, and Krina happily shares that she has no regrets leaving the vampire realm to experience a normal school life. Despite facing dangerous moments, she's excited to continue attending the academy. Kale is glad to hear this and tells her about the upcoming martial arts event, a prestigious competition to determine the strongest in the capital, where top-ranking officials and guilds are in attendance. Kale, however, mentions that the competitors are on a completely different level from someone like him. Krina, undeterred, expresses her desire to join the event, making Kale ask if she's sure about it. With a confident smile, she declares that she's always ready to dive in headfirst when it comes to festivals. Kale, a little surprised, mentions that they need to win the qualifiers first before getting to the main event, but Krina is determined. Both of them hope that the looming issues with the Imperial Army will be resolved soon. Kale suddenly grows suspicious that the government might be ignoring the situation due to the military's involvement, but Krina disagrees based on her previous interrogation. As they discuss further, they start to believe that the Imperial Army might be made up of extremists pushing forward with the development of special armaments. Kale wonders why they don't just protest publicly, but Krina explains that it would be risky and that the Empire isn't as united as it appears. She mentions that if word gets out, it could cause a major crisis, which the nation would likely want to avoid. Kale feels the weight of their conversation, realizing that the Empire might be hiding its true intentions. Krina, impressed by Kale's sharp observations, compliments him, catching him off guard. She remarks that despite him not being directly affected by the situation, he's able to think clearly and assess the danger. Kale, humbled but determined, responds that he's affected too, as he agreed to be her guard and wants to keep her safe. Krina agrees, though she mentions that protesting the Empire might be a bit tricky. She shares that, despite taking action, the attacks haven't stopped. She suspects that the Empire isn't concerned with other vampires, but rather has been focused on her from the very beginning. Kale is surprised by this and asks for more details. Krina reveals that, as a child, she was often visited by Imperial soldiers who performed blood tests on her regularly. She also adds that she's of a higher class compared to other vampires. Kale, curious, asks if she means a higher social status, but Krina clarifies that unlike humans, high-ranking demi-humans possess a wide range of abilities and strengths, putting them on a completely different level. Kale realizes just how exceptional Krina's rank is, and that her frequent blood tests were likely part of the Empire's efforts to monitor her. Krina acknowledges her high status among vampires, but points out that it's far from being royal, which she defines as being the king. She explains that the vampire king holds the highest rank in their society, a position that naturally places him on the throne. Krina recounts her first meeting with the king, remembering how she instinctively knelt before him. Kale, reflecting on this, recognizes how different demi-humans are from humans. Krina adds that, in her world, fate determines who becomes king, and she is the only one in the vampire domain who underwent blood testing. Kale begins to understand that the Imperial Army's plans likely involve using her blood to create military weapons. He empathizes with her, knowing how her blood has been exploited by the Empire for such purposes. Krina, feeling guilty, apologizes to him for dragging him into this dangerous situation. Kale reassures her, reminding her of his daily salary and his determination to resolve the issue no matter what. Krina smiles, touched by his resolve. The next day, they visit the guild, which Krina finds massive and impressive. The guild is called the Dawn Brigade, one of many within the kingdom, but Kale trusts it, especially since Mui belongs to this particular guild. As they walk inside, Krina notices a large portrait of Mui hanging on the wall, and she remarks that adventurers inside will go crazy if they find out Kale is Mui's brother. The receptionist greets them cheerfully and asks if they're there to register. Kale confirms, and the receptionist assumes they are both vampires due to their appearance. She prepares an entrance exam to test their abilities. Meanwhile, an aggressive man nearby is causing a commotion, claiming to be the Sword Saint's brother. The other receptionist asks for proof, to which the man points to his silver hair, which resembles the Sword Princess's. Kale and Krina exchange glances, silently observing the scene. The receptionist explains that it's common for people to try and impersonate the Sword Saint's brother to gain access to the guild. She then reveals that the Sword Saint holds her older brother in the highest regard and provides significant support when he decides to join the guild. She mentions that the Sword Saint has set aside 300 gold coins and an S-rank pass, which allows free passage through all the nations, along with luxurious accommodations. Kale, overwhelmed with emotion, asks the receptionist to stop, realizing that Mui's financial support has leaked, causing others to try to impersonate her brother. Krina, sensing Kale's discomfort, whispers to him jokingly, suggesting he doesn't really need the reward. Kale, though a bit embarrassed, feels his pride hurt and does not want to depend on Mui for the rest of his life. Krina understands his feelings. The receptionist, who is aware that the Sword Saint's brother has black hair, confirms that the man who claimed to be him is indeed a fake. She goes on to describe the real brother in great detail, calling him handsome like a charming prince. Kale and Krina pause for a moment after hearing the description, their thoughts lingering on the unexpected details. The receptionist proceeds with the details of the entrance exam, instructing Kale and Krina to add a drop of their blood into a glass of water and keep it from dissolving for a full minute. Krina finds the challenge fascinating, intrigued by the unique nature of the exam. The two prick their thumbs and drop the blood into the glass, focusing intently on the task. Kale feels surprisingly relaxed, not burdened by the challenge, but as the minute ticks by, they both remain steadfast in keeping the blood from dissolving. Once the minute passes, the receptionist congratulates them on passing the exam. She encourages them to keep going, revealing that some vampires push their limits during the exam to show their true prowess. She shares that there are rare individuals who can keep their blood in the glass for almost 5 minutes, which astonishes Krina. However, Kale, who has plans after the exam, admits that he can't push himself further, and the receptionist acknowledges this. At this point, a new presence arrives, drawing the attention of Kale and Krina. They are both taken aback to see Bronix, the guild master, a significant figure in the guild. He observes them closely, noting that they are high-ranking vampires and expresses excitement at seeing such promising newcomers. Bronix reveals that, with his extensive experience, he can easily tell their ranks, having met the king of the demi-humans multiple times. With a stern expression, he asks for their names. Kale and Krina, understanding the need for discretion, introduce themselves using different names to protect their identities. Although Bronix seems suspicious, Kale reassures him. As they fill out their registration forms, Kale and Krina inquire about the guild's lodging facilities, to which Bronix explains that only members ranked E and above are allowed to use them. Krina, eager to level up, asks how she can progress from her F rank to qualify for the lodging. Bronix explains that the guild operates on a point system, with members needing to accumulate at least 100 points to level up. He also mentions that the difficulty of the quest increases as the rank rises. To help them, Bronix offers to waive the exam and interview requirements if they manage to gather 100 points within the day. With the new goal in mind, Kale and Krina head to the quest board to find missions that will grant them the necessary points. Krina asks Kale if he's comfortable with a quest to destroy a goblin nest, which he admits he hasn't tried before. Krina assures him she's fought goblins before, but her lack of firepower to destroy the nest itself poses a challenge. As they prepare to take on the quest, a familiar face appears: Ina, the beastman Kale met earlier. She confidently strides toward them and asks if they are in trouble. Krina, curious, asks Kale who she is, to which Ina introduces herself as a schoolmate. Ina offers to help Kale with the goblin nest quest, which relieves him. Kale, surprised, asks if Ina is registered with the guild, and she proudly displays her bandage, revealing that she's a rank adventurer. This shocks Krina. Ina takes the quest from the board, and Kale, grateful for her help, asks if she's willing to assist with the task. Ina agrees, explaining that she believes in the give and take principle. Kale, however, feels slightly uneasy, realizing he hasn't yet done anything to repay Ina for her offer. The guild then confirms the receipt of their quest, and Bronix learns that their first mission will be to eradicate a goblin's nest. With the team now assembled, Kale and Krina are ready to embark on their first guild mission, though Kale can't help but wonder what the future holds as they venture into the unknown. Kale finds the situation challenging, but realizes that if they truly want to earn 100 points, they'll need to push through. As he reflects on this, he remembers to ask the receptionist to clean up the glass and water from their earlier exam. The receptionist, suddenly struck with realization, looks to the guild master in shock and asks about the highest score ever achieved in the vampire exam. Bronix, after checking the records, casually mentions that the record was set by Sir Guilford, the Vampire King's brother, with an impressive 7 minutes and 42 seconds. He adds that only the Vampire King himself could surpass this record. The receptionist, still baffled, turns her attention to Kale and Krina's results. She is stunned to find that Kale's drop of blood is still perfectly intact inside the glass, an anomaly that raises her eyebrows. Meanwhile, in the forest, Kale, Krina, and Ina travel toward their first mission in a wagon. Ina casually calls Kale's attention and asks him why he hesitated to join her. She jokes that he could have just become her loyal servant. Krina, overhearing the conversation, interrupts sharply, asking Ina if she turned Kale into a beastman. Ina casually confirms it, to which Krina expectedly reacts, claiming that Kale is her loyal servant and will never be hers. Ina, with a smirk, responds that she'll do whatever she wants, but she's determined to make Kale hers. Kale, who had been quietly listening, is left puzzled, silently questioning what Ina's words even mean. Ina then offers to treat Kale like royalty, promising to prepare 10 servants for him, which catches both Kale and Krina off guard. Krina, confused by the whole situation, asks Kale what Ina is talking about. Ina, nonchalant as ever, simply ignores them and looks away. As the conversation dies down, Ina suddenly senses something in the air, noting that they are nearing their destination. The group soon finds themselves at the entrance of the goblin nest. Goblins are gathered outside, keeping watch, while Kale, Krina, and Ina hide behind some bushes, preparing to launch their ambush. They observe the goblins, noting how many are stationed outside just as lookouts. Ina asks Kale and Krina if they can use blood dance, a technique Kale seems unfamiliar with. Krina explains that he already used it during their first encounter when they fought the Imperial soldier, though it's not something that can be used so easily. Ina, a little skeptical, asks if they can handle an entire army of goblins. Kale and Krina confidently assure her that they can, promising not to lose to the goblins and focusing on taking down their leader, the Goblin Master. Ina suggests they take out the goblins outside first, creating chaos among the others inside, which will allow them to destroy the nest. She proposes splitting into 2 teams, one to lure out the goblins and the other to take down the hobgoblin inside. Krina volunteers to be the distraction, confident in her skills honed in battle as a vampire. Kale, concerned, asks if she's sure, but Krina assures him that she won't easily be defeated, given her high rank. Kale silently recalls the first time he met Krina, when she was on the verge of defeat, yet still remained determined. Ina, warming up on the side, mentions that once the hobgoblin is taken down, the goblins inside the nest will rush out in a frenzy. The team immediately gets into position, ready to spring into action. Kale reminds Krina to retreat if the Imperial army shows up during the mission. As the group enters the dark cave, Ina asks Kale to follow her lead, and they prepare to face the challenge ahead, ready to take down the goblins and complete their first mission as guild members. Kale and Ina stay hidden in the shadows, carefully observing the goblins around them. They move silently, avoiding detection, until they arrive at a crossroads. A strange smell fills the air, leading them down one path. Just as they proceed, a group of goblins ambushes them. Ina, with her usual confidence, leaves the battle to Kale. He prepares himself for the confrontation and uses his blood dance to push one goblin away, feeling a surge of power. Confident, Kale believes he can take on another one. Ina, however, isn't just standing by. She steps forward and delivers a brutal, powerful kick that decapitates one of the goblins instantly. Kale is taken aback by her strength, impressed by the effortless power in her strike. They briefly exchange compliments about each other's abilities, with Kale remarking that the blood dance seems to be a skill unique to certain vampires. Ina explains that only nobles and highly trained soldiers can use it, likening it to the swordsmanship of legendary knights. She also points out that Kale is, by nature, an ordinary person, though she means it as a compliment. Kale doesn't quite take it that way. They continue moving cautiously, peeking around a corner to observe the hobgoblin and its minions. Ina suggests that Kale should take on the hobgoblin this time, surprising him. She argues that fighting someone stronger than him would be invaluable experience and promises to back him up if necessary. Kale, though initially hesitant, accepts the challenge, trusting Ina's judgment and preparing himself for the fight. As Ina charges forward to deal with the goblin army, Kale focuses, channeling his blood dance once more. He leaps into the air, his pitch-black axe raised for a powerful strike against the hobgoblin. The hobgoblin blocks the blow with its massive sword, and Kale feels the weight of the enemy's strength. Struggling, Kale notices the goblin swarm gathering in the background, and Ina's voice rings out, reminding him to trust his instincts. Ina explains that as demi-humans fall from grace, they unlock more of their unique abilities, and Kale's next step is to surrender to his instincts. She adds that a human's heart only serves as a shackle holding him back. Kale, taking her words to heart, braces himself as the hobgoblin moves in for a retaliatory strike. Summoning his blood war axe, he blocks the hobgoblin's powerful attack, the clash of blades reverberating through the cave. As the battle rages on, Kale realizes that he is no longer just a human, but a vampire, embracing his primal instincts. Suddenly, he finds himself falling into a phantom chasm, the sight of a glowing silhouette of a vampire leaving him speechless. His surroundings shift, and he stands in a quiet cave, looking at the decapitated body of the hobgoblin. Confused, he wonders if he was the one who defeated the monster. Ina's voice pulls him out of his thoughts, her face showing disbelief as she watches him. Kale is left questioning whether it was truly him who dealt the blow, feeling the remnants of the defeat in his hands. Ina warns him not to let his guard down, but as they finally exit the cave, Kale is still unsure of what just happened. Krina, who has been anxiously waiting outside, rushes to Kale's side, her concern written all over her face. She asks if he is okay, pointing out that his status is rising based on the energy radiating around him. Kale is confused, unable to fully grasp what Krina means. He wonders what exactly happened in that cave, and what his newfound power means for him going forward. Kale is still struggling to understand the strange sensations coursing through him. Though he feels something immense shifting within him, he urges the group to stay focused on the mission. They need to seal off the cave entrance to prevent the river goblins from reclaiming it. The task is completed, and the group starts making their way back to the guild. However, as they walk under the moonlit sky, Ina calls their attention to something flying above them. It's none other than the Imperial soldier they encountered earlier, now soaring through the air. Without hesitation, Krina orders everyone to run as the danger escalates. Kale acts swiftly, summoning his shield and using his reflexes to protect the group from the impending fire blast. The Imperial soldier lands with a menacing tone, confronting them. He introduces himself as an Imperial soldier hunting Krina and demands that Kale hand her over, threatening to pursue them wherever they try to hide. Kale is taken aback by the sheer power of the soldier's fire magic, which he suspects may be inherent to demons. The soldier launches another powerful blast, trying to devour them with flames, but Kale braces himself, managing to block the attack. A massive burst of light erupts, blinding everyone momentarily. When the light fades, Kale and the girls are unharmed, leaving the Imperial soldier in shock. He can't believe that his attack was simply blocked by a thrall. Kale, now resolute, charges forward and delivers a swift strike to the soldier, wounding him. The Imperial soldier is visibly confused, unable to track Kale's speed. His rage builds as he prepares another massive flame attack, but before he can unleash it, a dark, ominous presence looms behind him. Fauna, a vampire and Krina's personal guard, steps forward to intervene. The soldier's attack is interrupted, causing the flames to explode around him. Fauna stands unfazed, her expression as cold as ever. Krina is surprised to see her guard, and Fauna apologizes for arriving late. The Imperial soldier, now realizing he is outmatched and outnumbered, acknowledges his disadvantage and retreats. Fauna stands in front of Kale and the group, and Ina, curious about everything unfolding, asks for an explanation. Kale takes the time to fill Ina in on the details, explaining the situation as clearly as he can. Ina finally grasps the situation and then turns to Fauna, eager to learn more about her. Fauna politely introduces herself, revealing that her family has been serving the royal vampire lineage for centuries and that she is Krina's personal aide. Krina, with a mix of emotion and relief, shares that Fauna opposed her decision to join the academy, which Fauna confirms, though she doesn't seem to recall the falling out that followed. Fauna confesses that Krina's sudden departure from the vampire realm, without even a word to her, left her feeling abandoned. Krina vehemently denies this, emphasizing how precious Fauna is to her and that she would never have cast her aside. The two share a heartfelt reconciliation, clearing up any misunderstandings. Kale and Ina watch quietly as the two vampire girls make amends. However, the moment doesn't last long. Fauna suddenly notices Kale and Ina's gaze upon them, prompting her to address the situation formally. She asks who Kale and Ina are. Kale introduces himself, stating that he's Krina's current bodyguard. At this, Fauna's expression turns menacing, and she clarifies whether he is truly in charge of Krina's protection. The air becomes thick with tension as Kale realizes that mentioning his role may have been a mistake. Fauna's gaze hardens as she recognizes Kale's name, and he awkwardly admits that he is the Sword Saint's brother. The tension between Fauna and Kale reaches a new level, and the atmosphere becomes charged with uncertainty. Kale wonders how Fauna will react to this revelation, knowing the complicated history it might bring into play. Kale listens carefully as Fauna lays out the conditions of the duel. Her challenge surprises him, but the tension between them is undeniable. She insists that this duel is necessary to assess his strength, as she's unsure about him being Krina's bodyguard. Kale can sense her powerful presence, an aura that intimidates him. Despite his hesitation, Kale accepts the challenge, and the two head to the training grounds. When they arrive at an empty training room, Kale notices that Krina's blood is still coursing through him, reminding him of their connection. Fauna is already prepared, having taken care of all the details for the duel. As she steps forward, Fauna stomps her foot on the ground and sets a wager. The loser must follow the victor's command. If Fauna wins, Kale will have to stop being Krina's bodyguard and will not be required to accompany them back to the vampire realm. This condition takes effect immediately the following day, which surprises Kale. Kale asks her if this is truly what Krina wants, but Fauna responds that this decision is solely hers. She then explains the two main reasons behind her condition. First, she doesn't trust Kale. Fauna reveals that she learned Kale is considered a failure at their school, a stark contrast to his honorable sister, the Sword Saint. She struggles to understand how someone like Kale, whom she sees as a failure, could have won Krina's trust. Fauna admits she can't bring herself to entrust Krina to someone she sees as incapable, especially when Krina's life is at stake. Kale, now understanding her perspective, quietly processes her words. He knows that Fauna's protective instincts are strong, but it doesn't change the fact that he's determined to protect Krina in his own way, despite the doubts that others may have about him. Kale's expression hardens as he prepares for the next phase of the battle. Fauna, in a cold and calculated tone, reveals her second reason for challenging him. She simply does not like him. Kale, taken aback by her bluntness, tries to process the intensity of her disdain. Fauna signals the start of the duel by dropping the knife to the floor, marking the beginning of their blood ritual. The two cut their hands, their blood intertwining as they begin the fight. The moment the knife hits the ground, Fauna wastes no time. She swings her bloody scythe, moving with terrifying speed. Kale reacts quickly, dodging her first strike with agility, but Fauna is relentless. She immediately follows with another strike, this time with a chain scythe that whips through the air. Kale narrowly blocks the attack with his shield, but Fauna doesn't give him a chance to recover. She charges at him, her bloody dagger ready to strike. Kale's instincts kick in, and he dodges her strike again, but Fauna's frustration grows. She slides across the ground, angry and insulted, declaring that Kale is an eyesore to her. She accuses him of having no right to call himself Krina's protector. Kale, trying to defend himself, attempts to explain his relationship with Krina, but Fauna dismisses it, claiming that he has no real connection to Krina. She insists that only she, her true guardian, has the right to protect her master. Kale's frustration mounts as he retorts that Krina should tell him to his face if she no longer needs him. His words seem to enrage Fauna even further. She suddenly drops her weapon and turns the conversation to money, asking Kale how much he is being paid for the job. She arrogantly offers him 5 silver coins, as if that would be enough to buy him away from Krina. Kale, feeling insulted by her attempt to undervalue him, grins with a menacing look. He reveals that he earns 5 gold coins per day, a sum that shocks Fauna. She can't believe he's worth that much, and for a moment she shows a glimpse of vulnerability, complaining that she only earns 7 silver coins per day. Kale, enjoying the impact of his revelation, asks if she's crying, which she vehemently denies. Fauna quickly shifts back to her prideful stance, stating that money is not important to her. Her bond with Krina is what truly matters. She boasts that no one can sever the connection she shares with her master, a bond that transcends distance and time. Her heart resonates with Krina's, and nothing can break that bond. Kale, acknowledging the strength of their relationship, points out that Fauna had once felt abandoned by Krina, something that only fuels her anger even more. As the tension escalates, Kale suddenly feels a sharp throbbing in his head, causing his focus to waver. Fauna seizes the opportunity, charging at him with deadly intent. She uses her blood dance, a powerful skill that allows her to move with precision and speed. Kale, struggling with the sudden pain in his head, manages to block her attack with a bloody short sword, but the strain is evident. Fauna, recognizing his weakening state, taunts him, suggesting that he should concede. She acknowledges that Kale is a remarkable human for being able to wield blood art, but she remains confident that she is more than capable of being Krina's one and only guardian. Raising her hand, she summons a drop of her blood, which rapidly grows into a pitch-black sphere. Fauna declares that she will unleash her family's special blood art. In an instant, the sphere breaks apart, transforming into countless droplets of blood that shoot through the air like needles. Kale, standing his ground despite the overwhelming odds, remembers Ina's words from their earlier encounter in the cave. She had told him that emotions were a hindrance for demi-humans, that they needed to surrender to their instincts. This mindset had helped him defeat the hobgoblin, and now, as the blood droplets rain down on him with deadly speed, Kale knows he must do the same. He steels himself, focusing on the primal instincts that Ina had spoken of. His eyes narrow as he prepares to face Fauna's devastating blood art. With this understanding, he embraces the full force of his abilities. Kale activates his new skill, the Dance of the Blood, summoning a multilayered aegis that surrounds him, its power flowing like a fluid extension of his will. His movements are calm, controlled. He takes charge of the energy coursing through him and uses it to launch a counterattack. The sheer speed of his actions catches Fauna off guard. In the blink of an eye, Kale finds himself standing before her, his blade poised at her throat. He declares himself the winner of their duel, leaving Fauna speechless and stunned at the unexpected outcome. Kale, too, is taken aback by the result, unsure of how to process her reaction. As he releases the tension in his body, he is surprised to see Fauna burst into tears, her sobs echoing through the room. Kale, unsure how to handle the situation, feels a knot form in his chest. He starts to panic, not knowing what to do as Fauna wails uncontrollably. She spirals into self-pity, believing that Krina has already abandoned her, and Kale tries to console her, but she refuses to listen. Fauna's emotional turmoil deepens as she questions why Krina would hire Kale in the first place. Her possessive nature surfaces as she insists that only she is worthy of being Krina's guardian. Kale, frustrated and confused, tries to explain that it wasn't a matter of being replaced, but merely a circumstance where she wasn't around. Fauna's pain seems to stem from the idea that she's being cast aside, that she's no longer needed by her master. The deeper she falls into this belief, the more intense her cries become. Kale, at a loss, urges her to talk to Krina directly. He begins to doubt if he is somehow to blame for the situation. Fauna finally gathers herself enough to acknowledge the reality she can't always be by Krina's side, but the fact that Kale is being paid more and is growing stronger only exacerbates her sense of being pushed aside. Her anger boils over as she screams that she should be Krina's one and only bodyguard, the only person worthy of standing by her side. Just then, Krina bursts through the door, her eyes frantic as she demands to know what is going on. The room falls silent, all eyes on her. Fauna, unable to hold back her emotions any longer, runs to Krina, begging her not to discard her, promising to do anything her master asks. Krina, visibly confused by Fauna's outburst, pats her head in an attempt to comfort her. She asks her to stop crying, trying to calm her down, but Fauna, her voice trembling, admits that she simply can't stop herself.